Hello Exiles, Red Lord here. Today let's talk about the Shaman Druid Ascendancy, what I'm cooking with it, what I'm thinking about it, and just theorycraft a little bit what I'm thinking about league starting with. So maybe you can get some inspiration, but stay a while and listen. So first of all, I just want to clarify that shapeshifting itself is not tied to the Druid class nor its ascendancies. It's based on new weapon class called Talismans, and basically with the Talisman you're gonna choose what you're gonna shapeshift into. If it's gonna be a bear, if it's gonna be a werewolf, or if it's gonna be a wyvern. So don't limit yourself into thinking that you can only shapeshift with Druid or some of its ascendancies. You can go Blood Mage shapeshift werewolf. It doesn't really matter. You can play whatever class you want and shapeshift as long as you get a talisman. So let's now take a look at the Shaman Ascendancy itself. Starting off with the Wisdom of the Maji 2-pointer at the beginning of the Ascendancy, gain the benefits of additional bonded modifiers on runes and idols. So this could mean lots of different things. These things could do some really build enabling things we don't really know yet. That's the thing, so we're gonna discover that on Friday. But the thing that immediately caught my eye was just the pure damage or quality of life you can get from these things. As we could have seen in the announcement showcase, there was a rune that if it would be socketed in martial weapon, which talismans are gonna be martial weapons, by the way, at least according to the PoE wiki, it would, in addition to its original effect, give you 1.5 flat crit to the weapon that it's socketed into. And some of these talismans, from what we could have seen in the gameplay, they had like 8 to 10% crit. So basically from, let's say, 9%, you're gonna get to 12% base crit. Then you slap on the suffix, which I assume would be up to 5 flat crit. Now you all of a sudden have 17% base crit weapon, which is a lot. And with the rework to the skill tree on the top left side, there's gonna be, what did they say, like 150 new nodes on pretty much just the left side of the top left side of the tree. I think there's gonna be quite a lot of crit oriented notables on the tree, so I think it shouldn't be really all that hard to get some really decent crit chance on a druid, or at least on a character that is pathing to the top left side and actually picking talismans. So the second thing is Sacred Flow, gain 40 spirit for each available empty charm slot. I'm sure someone will create something broken with this, because pretty much 120 flat spirit seems like it's really good for sacrificing your charm slots. I don't personally think that losing charm slot would be that big of a loss. So I assume someone, maybe minion players, are actually pogging about this thing. I have no idea. I've pretty much never played minions, both in PoE1 or PoE2. But I think that someone will create something really good with this. Now let's actually cover the reactive growth and avatar of evolution. I think it, at least to me, I know that a lot of players are gonna disagree here with me, because not really many people like conditional defenses. I don't mind them. I think this could be really good. This has potential to be really good, especially while mapping and especially with melee characters where you're actually getting hit a lot. But yeah, reactive growth by itself, I don't think it's that good, honestly. Like, take 4% less elemental damage per adaptation. Basically, you get one adaptation by taking elemental damage of the type. So basically, cold damage is gonna give you cold adaptation, which means 4% less cold damage taken, and not actually less elemental damage taken as it says here. That's, I assume, how the wording should be, because something feels a bit sus here. But yeah, by itself, this thing doesn't seem particularly interesting to me. But with the avatar of evolution, I think that's where it's gonna shine, because you're gonna convert 5% of physical damage to every kind of element. So that means if there's a monster that deals physical damage hit, you're gonna convert 15% of the monster's damage to fire, cold, and lightning, 5% of each, which means that you should be able to get all 3 adaptation from one single hit off of that monster, which would mean basically 4% less damage taken for each element. It doesn't, and luckily it doesn't specify that it's just for spell damage or just for attack damage, just less elemental damage taken all across the board. And that should include not just the hit damage, but also damage over time. Which, for example, Ignite, as I've learned in the Abyssal League, sometimes it was actually quite a thing to deal with, Ignite. And again, if these are lasting 10 seconds, I think it's gonna be quite a good thing to just get, especially for mapping where you get multiple hits at once, especially if you're gonna be like a bear or a werewolf actually standing still and attacking in a melee range. But yeah, as I said, keep in mind the wording here, both on both of these two, is a bit weird in my opinion. Maybe it's just me, but yeah. Now let's get into the damage stuff of the Ascendancy. So first of all, Druidic champion, every 2 points of rage gives you 1% more spell damage. I guess, is there anything to explain with how it would seem you're gonna be pushed to spellcasting and attacking at the same time with the Druid? I guess this is just a no-brainer, right? And then the other one, Furious Wellspring, no inherent loss of rage, basically disables your rage loss, regenerates 6% of your maximum rage per second. For example, let's say you've got 60 maximum rage. So basically you divide 60 by 100 times 6 and you're gonna see that your rage per second regen is gonna be 3.6 rage per second, and that's based on your maximum regen. So the more max regen you get, the more regen you're gonna get. The next one is increases in reduction to mana regeneration rate also apply to rage regen, which basically means, let's take the 3.6 flat rage regen example again. If you get 100% mana regen, you just do plus 100%, right? And you're gonna have 7.2 mana regen, basically double that, right? So yeah, this seems pretty good, especially I believe they're not gonna like remove all the mana regen from the top left side of the skill tree. They're just gonna move some stuff or do numerical changes, but yeah, I would assume that there's gonna be some amount of mana regen on there. So it would make a lot of sense actually to get some mana regen, both not just for your actual mana regen, but for rage regen, since the next node's gonna give +5 rage cost to every skill, spell, and attack, doesn't matter, that isn't a basic attack or a default attack. So unless you're gonna be playing these default attacks, you're gonna be losing rage. And then it's gonna give you 7 maximum rage as well. And now the actual main selling point for me for this Ascendancy, Bringer of Apocalypse. And we had a slight taste in the gameplay showcase from GGG what it looks like. And honestly, I must say I don't want to be too negative about this. I know that they usually do their showcases like slowly and all of that, but it seemed like it was proccing not all that often, and it didn't seem, at least to me, that it was actually targeting monsters. So this might end up being really bad, but I guess even if it's bad, it's gonna be at least something for like a good visual feeling about the build, because I really do love these Diablo 2 Werewolf Armageddon style of builds, right? So for me, this one actually is the selling point. Hopefully it's gonna be good. And yeah, we missed one. And that's because currently on PoEDB, there's not anything about this node, but from my guessing, there's some kind of fire, cold, and lightning, so I assume it's maybe going to do something with the apocalypse itself, or maybe just give you higher chance for applying those ailments. So let's say the cold one is gonna give you 50% increased freeze buildup. The shock one, yeah, the lightning one's gonna give you 50% increased chance to shock, and the fire one 50% chance to ignite, something like that. Whatever it is, it's gonna do something with the elements because it leads up to the node of Bringer of Apocalypse. But yeah, I assume it's gonna be something like that. So now let's talk about some of the items and gems that I'm thinking about combining with the Shaman Ascendancy. And obviously, to start things off, I must show you the Death Articuled unique gloves, and mainly for basically one effect. and it's the regenerate 5 rage per second. This is basically going to be additional 5 flat rage regen per second. So if you're going to make a high attack speed build or high cast speed build, you're going to have to deal with the high rage loss from the Shaman Ascendancy, since your skills are going to cost you 5 rage, right? So getting that extra flat 5 maximum or 5 regen of rage per second, let's say it's going to push you to 10 flat regen, or in the example we had, it would push us to 8.6 flat rage regen per second. And then, yeah, if you get 100% increased mana regeneration rate, double that, and now you're at like 17.4 or something like that % regen, right? And that's actually a lot of rage per second. The other one is, of course, Rageforged. You might have heard about this one. I assume this is not gonna survive until the launch, because to me it just seems like totally broken thing on the Shaman, and it's because of the gain 1 to 3 random charge on reaching maximum rage, so, and lose all rage when reaching maximum rage. So actually you could make a build that would go for as low amounts of rage as possible to basically gain rage as quickly as possible, to then remove that rage and get those charges and spend those charges for some builds. But either way, even if you wouldn't do a build like that, it would basically give you free charge generation, which makes me think about the new totems. I think they're gonna bringing like spell totems, which are gonna consume, instead of endurance charges like normal totems, they're gonna be consuming power charges. So yeah, it might survive, it might not, I'm not sure. Maybe it's not as broken as I'm thinking it is, but it definitely sounds extremely powerful. So for the gems, first one of course is Berserk for the up to 69% increased rage effect. Let's say an example, we have 60 maximum rage, 69% increased effect. It would basically give you 101 more attack damage instead of 60, because each point of rage is 1% more damage. So Berserk of course sounds like extremely good offensive aura or persistent buff, especially when it costs only 30 spirits. Like having 40 more attack damage for 30 spirit is amazing, but you would have to deal with the downside of lose 0.1% of maximum life per rage. That would of course mean if you have 60 maximum rage, you would lose 6% of your maximum life per second, and that's quite bad actually, but I assume there's gonna be some form of life regen on the skill tree anyways, so it might be fine in the end. And the other combination of support gems I'm thinking about actually is a combination of Rage 3 and Rageforged. Rage 3 would provide you with 5 rage on melee hit, as well as massive 15% more attack speed while not at maximum rage. And keep in mind that more attack speed modifiers are quite scarce in PoE2. But for the 15% more attack speed, we would have to find a way how to spend that rage, right? To not be at maximum rage, because while we're at maximum rage, we're not gonna get that effect. And that's where Rageforged comes in, for basically giving our skills 10 rage cost. So altogether our skills would cost 15 rage per cast, which is quite a lot actually, but we would get 5 back for pretty much every hit. And keep in mind that rage generation has 0.5 seconds cooldown. Basically you're gonna get rage every 0.5 seconds and no more than that. But if we could balance out our attack speed and rage spending and rage generation, we could have the 15% more attack speed bonus at all times and the 35% more damage from Rageforged at all times pretty much. And that to me sounds like a good deal. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I am 100% going werewolf, and I can almost guarantee you that I'm gonna be going Shaman Ascendancy just because of the apocalypse, and I'm praying that it's gonna be good. We shall see. But with that said, thank you very much for watching, Exiles, and see you in the next one.